Yes. Hello, Chris. How are you?
How are you, man?
I'm really good. Oh, you've gone all digitized. Your voice is all digital. Are you?
Really?
Oh, that's weird. You were sounding so wonderful before I click record. Can I just comment? Wonderful Fred Perry shirt, one of my all-time favorite brands.
Yeah. Same, same.
So Chris, we are like Instagram friends.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, normally I've been chatting to people who I've known for a long time and are all about their life, but you and I have connected digitally, I guess, through some very shared interests, which are sobriety and uh,
Music.
Muay Thai, being stepdads. It's been the hardcore scene.
Yeah, man.
It's been really fun. Like I guess following your journey and seeing the parallels, despite the fact that you're in Toronto, Canada.
Just outside Toronto, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do? What are you doing? You're on lockdown over there right now, but you're a fireman, right?
Yeah, so my full-time job, I work for the fire department in Niagara Falls. So we haven't stopped working. It's obviously like an essential service. Definitely a lot of changes around there. And the call volume's gone way down and everything like that. But it's sort of business as usual. We're kind of used to doing like the ups and downs of different things that go on with the public. So we take all the precautions as it is. So we've added some things, but it's still business as usual for us.
And you're also a public speaker, right? You talk about recovery and addiction.
Yeah. So I work for this company called Edgewood Health Networks, and they're a company that's nationwide in Canada. They have treatment centers across the country. They picked me up actually also through just like Instagram post and sort of a video that I sent to you the other day. They saw that and I guess they saw some use in somebody who's willing to be open and honest about this stuff. Um, I've been sober for just 9.5 years now. And, in my line of work, there's not too many people talking about their, I don't want to say weaknesses, vulnerabilities and deficiencies and willing to speak up about it and share their stories, messages of hope and that sort of thing. So they basically send me around the country talking to different groups. Like for them, I'll speak with different emergency service like police, fire, EMS, nurses, corrections, that sort of thing, as well as military. And they'll just send me to, sometimes just to regular offices, just to share my story as a message of hope. And, people, no matter what, if the person in the room, if there's no people in the room that are affected by, addiction or alcoholism, they've got somebody in their life who was, so they have been affected by it. So it's been really well received and super beneficial. And I don't want to say like for me to be able to share my story on a scale like that, it's massive. And it just every time I share my story, it helps me just as much as it might help the people I'm talking to. So it's amazing.
Wow. Do you have really high rates of addiction in Canada?
We do. And specifically with my target audience, which is emergency service, because and military as well, right? Like we're for the most part here in Canada, it's fire service is male dominated still. We're taking steps, we're getting there as far as equality that way goes, but it's still a very like I call it like a caveman culture. So it's true, like we're not really we're not uh, we're kind of told to suck it up and walk it off, and you might see it but you don't talk about it, and a lot of people go drink about it instead of talking.
Yeah, man, that's that I'm actually writing my master's degree right now, looking at constructs of masculinity and how I'm looking particularly at how hip hop music transmits those and
Yeah,
normalizes those, but it's the same everywhere. Like I find it really interesting how universal those ideas of what it means to be a real man are. You
that's
know,
right.
but particularly through the Western world, we've all got the same influences and the same cultural expectations and cultural norms, and it's the same here.
Yeah.
We have a really big male suicide problem in New Zealand, particularly for young
Okay.
men.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's the same in Canada. Like men make up the dominant number of people who end up in jail for violent crime, who have substance abuse issues, like I said, suicide. And obviously, this is where I came into the work, stop perpetrators of family and sexual violence.
Right.
And I guess it's the same over there, huh?
It is. It's the same,
Yeah.
I think, across the board. Like
Yeah.
we're all programmed, like at some point of our lives to have this picture of what a man is supposed to be, and it's not accurate, and it's very destructive for many, and then some of us take it a little too far, and it can be really scary if people aren't willing to talk about what's actually going on, right? For
Yeah.
fear, yeah, for fear of judgment or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, we discipline boys and men. It's
Yeah,
when they want to step outside of that box. There's so much. I don't know about you, but when I went to an all boys high school, and if you were different, you got hassled and teased, and
yeah,
all the homophobic slurs and put downs. And
for sure.
when I look at my life, like, while I didn't do it consciously,
Yeah,
I took my nose ring out. I stopped dyeing my hair like yellow and pink, and
sure.
I got a fade, and I
Yeah.
became like as tough as I could be by becoming a professional
From Portland.
kickboxer. Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
for
which
sure.
worked for me on a lot of positive levels, but I did, when I look back at my life now, fall into a lot of those stereotypical ideas of what it meant to be a man, and it's hard to avoid, like, unless someone sits down and specifically talks to you, right?
For sure. And it has to happen young too, like
Yeah.
you get once you get into that high school age, you're just so impressionable, and like these social norms are really destructive.
Yeah. Hey, let's start at the beginning for you. So, what was growing up like? You grew up with mom and dad, or?
Yeah. So I grew up in a kind of middle class household. Mom's side was more like the workers, like factory worker type of people. My dad's side was more business. I thought it was a pretty normal childhood. I was really, I don't know, I guess I was kind of shy, kept to myself. I was smaller than most of the kids. I was sort of like the last to be picked at gym class for the teams and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I turned to other things. So like I picked up a guitar and started playing music. I started to listen to a lot of different music, and the music that I was attracted to was more like aggressive music, and I liked kind of the chaos of it. You know, to, I like the chaos of the music, but the messages as well. And then I picked up a skateboard, and because I wasn't doing the team sport thing, like here in Canada, by the time you're 4 years old, you're supposed to be shooting a hockey puck, right? And that wasn't me. I was on my skateboard or playing my guitar. That was kind of my childhood, and I was really struggling to meet and keep friends. And I think it was just because I was a shy kid, and I don't know. It was tough for me to. I would meet people, but it was tough for me to get close to people. Um, I guess that would kind of come to an end. Like I had a lot of insecurities and a lot of sort of phobias as a kid, and that all changed when I had my first drink. So like 12, 13 years old, I took my first drink, and that first drink turned into my first drunk. So I blacked out, didn't remember a large portion of the night, and I woke up and had friends around me. It was like, to me, that was everything I had been searching for years and years, but I could never do it on my own. And the second I took a drink and partied with friends or acquaintances, they overnight became friends, and I associated the two. So like I quickly found what I thought was my place in my peer group, which was the drinker, the drug user, the party guy, the guy who would go to extremes, and like sort of a I don't give a shit about me, I don't give a shit about you sort of thing. And I not to say that I was I still had a level of respect for people, but I didn't respect myself at all when I was drinking and drugging. So yeah, it kind of just snowballed that way for me. Um,
What was behind all your insecurity and phobias? You know, like I know in my life, like I directly was super insecure with no self-esteem because I had a real messed up family life. My father's an alcoholic and, you
mhm,
know, was abusive, and it was just like pretty chaotic
yeah,
at home. So that led to me being, yeah, really shy and insecure. And it's interesting you talk about being 12 or 13 and you found drinking.
yeah,
And that's the same age when I found martial arts. And
okay.
yeah, that's really, I'm curious about that. Like, um, what was behind, do you think, all the insecurity?
Okay, so I mentioned that the way my family was, or the way my family, I should say, was perceived. Behind closed doors, it was a little different. My mom had mental health issues. My dad was kind of, he was doing his thing. He was a traveling kind of business guy, had a different life on the road. And when all that stuff kind of collided, my parents decided to split, and it was a very ugly, messy divorce. It ended up with my mom in jail. My dad was, ended up down in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was kind of in a place where, like, I didn't really have my family unit kind of fell apart, and I was really, really struggling because at that age, between 11, 12, 13, that time, I really was concerned with what people thought of me. And so if I were to, if people were to find out what was actually going on at home, and there was some other stuff, some violence and stuff like that. And then for me, and this wasn't family, but there was some sexual abuse when I was a kid as well. Um, and not by family at all, by older people who I thought were friends. So that definitely was a precursor. Um,
Wow,
yeah,
that's massive, dude. Well, first I just want to acknowledge I'm really sorry that you experienced that.
oh, I appreciate it. It's something, it happens way, like, far too much, and it's
That's
it's really, like, it's a massive event, and it's something that a lot of people, myself included, were not willing to look at for years and years.
that's what I'm learning. So, I
Mm.
work in sexual violence prevention and advocacy around these sorts of things, family violence, but I'm really learning how many boys and men get sexually abused, primarily by other boys and men, but by
Yeah,
females in their life too. And it has such massive flow-on effects to that individual's development. And our jails are full of men like that.
for sure.
The men who go on to have substance problems, who go on to be abusive, to go on to criminal careers where, yeah, sexually, and we don't talk about it. Going back to what we're chatting about, because
Mhm.
that's like the least manly thing to do, right? Like
Right,
that to be a victim of sexual abuse.
for sure.
It's
And
got so
it's
much
not something
stigma
that
around it. I mean, it's not
there's,
something people believe.
yeah,
Oh wow, that's yeah. Uh, I guess all part of your recovery has been dealing with that, huh? Like,
huge part of it. Yeah,
huge.
unpacking all of that, and really kind of looking at, um, like, how that affected me, how I could shut that out for years and years. And then, it kind of made me look at the way I treated my own relationships as well, in my own life. And that was, it kind of hurts to look back at some of the way I treated people and other partners. Um, and I don't want to say it's 100% as a result of that, but that definitely had a big piece to play in it, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like if we unpack the lives of so many people that we see splashed across the newspapers, there will be some sort of trauma like you're sharing with us at the root cause of why they've done what they've done, right? And I kind
For
of
sure.
wish we could do that more. Like as a society, we could strip back the judgment and the exclusion of people who, I don't know, do bad and figure out how to help them heal rather than to further humiliate, shame, and push them out.
For sure, for sure. I mean, it just, I think it takes a lot more people speaking up about it. But
Yeah, which is why you do what you do.
that's why I do it, because I didn't. I didn't get to hear somebody share a story like that, when I was younger. I didn't get to feel I could relate to somebody in any way that had been through something similar, right? So
Mm. So 13 years old, you have your first drink, you find your crowd, you eh, what next? Fast
uh,
forward to or
fast forward to band, like playing in bands. Like, so I found myself a band. We started doing like little mini tours, and it was like chaos on the road sort of thing. I was like, I was in high school still too. I hung around with a lot of older kids. You know, drugs became a massive piece of my life, like almost like I couldn't take a drink without, finding some kind of drug. And that went on for the rest of my sort of addiction or drinking and using career. So that was a big piece of it. When I was 17, I actually some bad things were really starting to happen. I was getting into like a lot harder drugs. I wasn't particularly interested in school. Relationships were falling apart. I was struggling with, even relationships in my own family. And then I was still trying to, a piece of me was still trying to hide, what had gone on, family life. And then, I was living with a lot of guilt and shame with the things that I would do when I was under the influence. Um, so I wanted to, and I think every alcoholic or addict has this part of their story, it seems, but I wanted to get away from myself. So at 17, I thought, how far away can I get? So I decided to like go out to New Zealand, and I think I told you this before,
no,
right?
I don't think I knew this, bro. For real? You came
Oh,
down here?
yeah, I was in Tauranga. Is the way you say it? I always get,
Tauranga. Yeah, that's good.
yeah, I always
Good
get
go.
corrected. Yeah. Yeah, so I was there for 3 or 4 months when I was 17, and the point of it was get away from what I had created. So I dropped out of high school, moved out there, and with this master plan to sort of like get well, reinvent myself, and come back this like this new person. And I go out there, find people who are exactly like me, get into all the same kind of stuff that I was getting into back home. Even worse, the progression. It was just, I felt like I was sort of on vacation too. So, there was nothing like as far as like school or any sort of like, priorities for me while I was there. So it was just,
There's no
party and have
structure.
fun. No structure. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't last, too long out there, and I came back home sort of with my tail between my legs, and went back into high school, and I thought I'd have these cool stories to tell, and I'd be this different guy, and worldly and all, but I was the same. I was the same drunken drug addict, doing the same things, but like I said, even worse and even worse. So after that, got out of high school, wanted to move away again, so I moved down to the Caribbean. I lived on an island for a year. Same story as New Zealand. Like, I basically moved down there. I thought I could be, whoever I wanted to be, and sort of, find out who I really was. At 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah.
Uh, and it just got real bad down there as well, right? So, in fact, I actually met somebody down there, and I was partying with him. He was into hardcore. He had gotten out of the Marine Corps, and he was from Boston, and we had been partying for days and days and days together, and we found out that we actually shared the same last name, and we traced it back, and we were actually related. So it's super interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and he was exactly like me. We had sort of the same mentality, the same affliction, and so we kind of fed off each other that way, right? So after a year, I don't want to say I wouldn't have been allowed to go back and continue to work on the island. So again, I had to come home after that. But it's again another example of like, you try and get away from your problem, but you bring yourself with you, right? So it's and like I said, a lot of alcoholics and addicts try this, and it's it's always the same story. Like I tried to go. I went as far as I could, and there I was.
No matter where you go, there you are, right?
Hmm.
Was mom out of prison at this stage?
Yeah, yeah.
Is she
So,
still bitter or?
yeah. So, yeah, she's like her and I. Are you talking now or when I
Well,
was?
I was talking about when you were 18, 19, but also
Yeah,
now.
yeah. No, she is and was at that time. Actually, she came down to visit me while I was there. Actually, she came for Christmas, which was kind of cool.
Right.
Hadn't seen her for a bit, so um, yeah. So she has she went into several sort of different um, mental sort of lockdown places and tried different treatment centers and that sort of thing. Like God bless her, she is an amazing woman, and she she tried her best and did and continues to do her best. But she doesn't have it in her to admit that she needs help. So it's
Yeah.
kind of one of those things now that her and I have we have a lot to talk about, but it doesn't always line up. It's always sort of a battle between, somebody saying, hey, there's help out there, and you can find some recovery as well. It doesn't have to be about drinking and drugs. Mental health is a huge, massive part of it, right? Um, but unfortunately, it's not as well received as I would like it to be, and that's fine. I mean, maybe one day, but
Yeah. This goes back to how much I relate to you because my father's the same. Like, it's funny that you've ended up in, I guess, like a career and a lifestyle where you are helping people with addictions and recovery, and I'm kind of the same.
yeah,
And I talk about all these sorts of things, and I'm like, Dad, this is literally what like you could go to here, 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 or here, but he's not. I guess he's never going to be ready for it. Well, maybe he will be when he's 80, but
yeah. Sometimes it feels like you're just banging your head on
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 a
a
wall.
concrete. But every time, so I'll say this, people did that for me when I was getting way out of control. And it was years and years and years of people telling me, hey, this help is out there. You can get well, you need help, and whoever it was, my partners, my family, the cops, my jobs, like everybody tried, and they must have felt the same way, that they were just banging their head against the wall too. But they're never say never, right? There's that defining moment for almost everybody, I think. And you know, I hope that your father finds that. I hope that
I mean,
that moment comes to him.
you and me both.
Uh,
So what led to you actually getting help? What led to those changes? You're 18, 19, you're partying, you're still doing the same thing, no matter how far you travel, there you are. What
yeah,
led to what led to
sure,
the the steps that have led to where you are now?
for sure. So I ended up working in a factory for a couple years, and that I was working on like midnight shift. So I had like there was no management around. It was perfect for me. I got to go into the factory, set up my machines, and then party all night, get off at 7 a.m. and continue the party, sleep for the afternoon and go do it again. Um, for me, that was, for me, it was a perfect lifestyle at the time. And I had a coworker there. He was this big, uh, burly looking tattooed guy with a massive beard, and like, like he looked like an old biker. And he'd always just sit there with his arms crossed, like staring at me, kind of shaking his head. And I kept thinking, like, what did I do to piss this guy off? Like, what's his problem? Like, am I gonna have to deal with this? And one day he came up to me and he said, kid, if you ever get sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, you can give me a call. I'm here to help. And he gave
Wow.
me a piece of paper with his name and number on it. And to be honest, I had no clue what he was talking about. But I didn't throw the number out. I put it in my wallet. And I thought, I don't know. I didn't know how to take the guy because I thought he had a problem with me, but now he's telling me he could help me. And I didn't know what that help was. But sure enough, 3 or 4 months later, I find myself sitting in a bar. You know, dealers weren't picking up my call, and my addiction had progressed. Like I was a daily IV user at the time. Like I was kind of I had a bunch of different groups of friends that I was trying to be the chameleon and keep everybody happy, and worlds were just colliding too much for me. So like Dealers weren't picking up my phone call. I owed too much money to people. I was racking up a bar tab at this bar and I couldn't pay it. And so I'm flipping through my wallet looking for something to maybe help me pay for my, like maybe I had a credit card somewhere or you know, cash stash somewhere, right? And I come across this guy's number and I pull it out in my wallet and I'm like, it says Terry with a phone number. So I remembered he could help me, he said, and truly, you know, I probably just wanted somebody to pay my bar tab, but I picked up the phone and called him. And I said, you know, you said you could help. I don't know how you can, but this is where I'm at. You know, and he said, okay, stay right there. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Sure enough, he shows up. He did pay my bar tab.
I was going to ask that.
So yeah. I was happy. Yeah. Takes me to a coffee shop, sits me down, and he like 12-stepped me. So he basically, you know, told me his story. He'd been sober for, I think at that time it was about 21 years. Basically gave me like a rundown of what he used to be like, what happened, and then what he's like today. And then at the end of it, he said, you know, are you interested in a life like that? And I said, of course, like anything to make this pain go away. I mean, keep in mind at this time, like I was pissing people off, you know, left, right, and center. I hated myself, like despised myself. I couldn't live with half the things I had done, the way I was treating myself, other people, things that had happened in my past. Like it was just a mountain of shit. And the only relief I could find was, you know, taking a drink or doing more drugs. And so I said, yeah, like, you know, anything to make this pain go away, like help me. And he said, okay, tomorrow we're going to an AA meeting and I'll pick you up. You know, you don't have to do anything. Just, you know, put your shoes on, come meet me at the truck. So I, you know, terrified, I said, okay, I'll go. And I didn't know what AA was supposed to be about. All I had seen is like, you know, what it looks like in films. And to me, that sort of seemed like a desperate place for like, and this is what I thought at the time, but I thought it was a place for losers, you know, a desperate place for desperate losers. And I was terrified to go there because I didn't want, I wanted the pain to stop, but I didn't want the party to end. But I went anyway.
Nice. I think a lot of people will relate to that. I wanted the pain to stop, but I didn't want the party. Okay, so you finally take those first few steps into, I guess, a recovery program. Did you have like a straight linear sort of journey from being a heavy user into a life of sobriety and Muay Thai and being a recovery coach and being a fireman? Because every time that I've ever met anyone who's been in recovery, normally it's like ups and downs and recovery and relapse and is that how it went for you? Or
I wish I could say it was like smooth sailing from there. I was 22 years old at the time. I stayed sober for about 6 weeks. I probably told people it was 6 months. I was, you know, I was, so this is my mistake. I walked into those rooms, terrified, judging everybody in that room, not being able to relate to anybody. I sat and just compared myself to people, and I thought, well, these people are older than me. But, you know, I was by far the youngest person in the room at the time. These people are older than me. They've been through much worse. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. I haven't done what he did. I haven't done what she did. I didn't say that. You know, it was comparison. So I was, you know, for say 6 weeks, I was abstinent from drugs and alcohol, but I wasn't even close to dipping my toes in recovery.
Sure.
So because of that, you know, I developed a massive resentment to the rooms of AA and the people in there. And I ducked out and relapsed. And this kind of, I did, the one piece that I did get in those rooms was that something stuck in my mind. I walked into the room and everybody was smiling and laughing, and they all wanted to shake my hand and introduce themselves to me. And I couldn't figure out, like, what the fuck are these people so happy about? They're sober. What are they smiling about? I couldn't figure it out. I think this is me as a 22-year-old little, you know, punk kid. And
all your recreation all your recreation, all your good memories had alcohol and drugs at the center of them, right? You didn't know any other way.
I didn't know sober people. I didn't know like what a sober life should look like. I just knew life as it was for me, and of course everybody that I surrounded myself with. So that one piece though, the smiling faces and the warm welcome, that stuck with me. So for me, every time that like something would go kind of south for me, like if I got picked up by the cops for something, if I had a breakup with a partner, if I was getting looked at work or that sort of thing, my first move would be, oh, okay, I remember where I can go. And at the time, to be honest, I was just trying to make it look good for other people, like to appease other people. But I would duck into the rooms of recovery, and not knowing this, I was picking up little pieces. So it was like seeds being planted along the way. I was kind of picking up these small little like tidbits of recovery that I was carrying with me, but not really tuned into quite yet. Um, and in that time, I was at 24 when I got hired on the fire department. So I was sober for a period of time when I was going through the interviews. You know, got hired, and with a good department. And one thing, and I said this in that video that I sent to you. The first thing that happened to me when I walked through the doors on the very first day was a senior firefighter had come up to us and said, if I can give you guys as a group, the brand new junior people, if I can give you guys one piece of advice to carry through the rest of your career, it's to never show your weakness around here because we prey on our weak. And that to me was a heavy, heavy statement. It was something that I carried with me for 8 years. The first 8 years of my working career. So day one, I'm told, don't show your weakness. Don't talk about your deficiencies or insecurities, and just kind of like zip it up and do the work. You're lucky to be here, kind of thing, right?
Wow. That's that fucking old school mentality. Like, and that obviously had a negative impact on you. Like,
For
as a young
sure.
man, as a young guy trying to find his place and trying to turn your life around. Here
Yeah.
is this Here's this dude who's like, nah, we don't talk about things, which is like the exact opposite of AA and recovery, where we talk about
Yeah.
everything.
So I'm doing this juggling act at this time, right? So like I'm out, I was at this point, and I ended up like selling drugs. My friends outside of work were all criminals and heavy drinkers, heavy users. And then so I'm like, half time I'm with these guys, and then the other half I'm at this job where I'm supposed to be this upstanding citizen, and I'm also told, be a man, don't talk about your stuff, and within the fire department, after our shifts, it's like a drinking culture. So when the shift is over, everyone goes to the bar, and especially if we had a rough night or a rough call or a big fire, we don't talk about it, we drink about it,
Well,
right?
I was gonna ask you that if you don't mind, because I imagine, you don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but you must see some horrific things,
Yeah.
like horrific. Because I know people who are fire officers, suicide responders, car accidents, obviously mortalities and fires. That
Yeah, it can be some really horrific and gruesome and quite sad, things that you have to walk in on, and that affected me a lot. And I'm actually just finding this out now. So I mean, I'll just fast forward for this one piece, but 9.5 years into recovery, I'm finding out that I actually suffer with PTSD as well, and I'm doing treatment for that right now. And I'm grateful for the awareness of it and to be able to kind of embark on a new piece of recovery. But the things that I saw, and some of the sets and the settings that you walk in on, like and for me, a lot of it hit home. Um, you know, I walk into suicide calls. Like I tried to do that a number of times. I saw my mom try to do that. I've walked into like overdose calls that were people that I used to use with. Like some of my very close friends gone, and I'm the first one to the scene, and I have to talk to the family.
yeah,
Um, it's a it's a tough thing, you know. Some car fires where people were living in the cars and that sort of thing. There's a lot of you know, calls with infants and that sort of thing. Tough things for sure. We also, like where I work it's in Niagara Falls. We're constantly pulling, you know, bodies out of the river there, and it's a big place for suicide. A lot of people jump there, right? And some
Really,
people,
I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, there's people going over the falls all the time, and some actually make it. So those are tough ones to see too. But yeah, we have casinos there and everything. It's trying to be like a little mini Vegas. Doing a poor job at it, I'd say. But um,
I've been once. The only time I've been to Canada was to go to the Niagara Falls really quick before I jumped
yeah,
on the Warp Tour. It's like 2 years ago. I jumped on the Warp Tour with the Amity Affliction,
okay,
but I've rushed over the border to see the Niagara Falls, and
yeah,
then which were incredible. Like they're famous for a reason.
for sure.
But yeah, the town around it is, well,
It,
not
it, it,
famous.
no, it's very it's a very seedy. Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
seedy
yeah.
parts of town. So yeah. Anyways, I mean,
So you're constantly re-traumatizing yourself this whole time. You
for
know,
sure.
like like you're constantly being triggered and having all these deep wounds that, from the sound at that stage in your life, had never even started to heal, and
No.
you kind of like pulling them open and putting all this human suffering in it every fucking day.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, did the fire service offer what we would call supervision down here? Do they offer you, like, you get a weekly appointment with a psychologist to talk about this, and this, or you walked in on the suicide and do you want some paid leave, or is that part of the way you work?
So it is starting to be now. Um, the first half of my career it wasn't, but now we're doing like a so we have a peer support team, which I'm lucky enough to be part of, which is fantastic for me. You know, but so if there is a major event, we call in it's called a critical incident stress management team. So we'll come in and sort of debrief the people that were on the calls, and then from there we can make recommendations like, yes, you need to, or it would be recommended that you see, like, you know, seek outside help, a psychologist or, you know, a kind of counselor, which we have benefits for. So we are covered. The only problem with it is nothing's mandatory except for speaking with our peers about it right after the call. So if you really want to heal from that, you have to seek that out. And, you know, still to this day, I talk to guys that are, oh, well, what if I see somebody I know there? You know, what if,
Yeah. So
oh,
it's a
they're there,
cultural thing. It's a
you
cultural
know?
shift thing.
Yeah,
Like, don't
it's tough.
only soft people will go to get the help that we know they actually need, right?
Yeah,
That's really hard. So
for sure.
so how did that impact your? You've got two parallel things going on. You're trying to be in recovery, but at the same time you're constantly getting exposed to, like, really horrific things to deal with. Did that, I guess, that exacerbated your drinking and drug use? And was that an
Ab-
assumption?
yeah, that is absolutely correct. I mean, I had no other way to turn it off. You know, my mind would spin, and the only thing that would take it out of that spin would be drugs and alcohol. But then in turn, my mind's spinning a different way.
Yeah.
You know, living with it. So I'm messed up from the things that are going on at work, but then I'm doing things to alleviate that, which is also messing me up once I'm out of that, you know, that binge. So I'm living with the pain and suffering and remorse and shame of what I've done under the influence, and then going back to work to get some more. So
Fuck, it's
it's
just like a suffering sandwich. It's
it
like,
is, and you know, at the time, I wouldn't have been able to identify it as that. I
yeah,
only know
yeah.
that looking back. It didn't seem abnormal to me at all. It was just sort of like, this is the path I chose, and this is the way I live. And like I said, I didn't know anybody else who lived any differently. And with the people at work, like I really kept my social life and work life very separate, even to the point where I was living in different cities, and all my friends would be, you know, all my friends would be in like Hamilton, Toronto, which is, you know, just outside of my city, and I'd be working in Niagara Falls because I wouldn't want to see anybody I wouldn't want people from work to see me doing what I do outside of work, or what I did, I should say.
Isn't it
So
fascinating how much of life is understood in retrospect? You know, like it's like, oh my God, I can't fucking believe I did that. Like, yeah, what
yeah,
was I thinking? I was a different person. I was a total maniac for such
yeah,
like extended periods of time. It's yeah, I always wonder how we can stop that happening. And this is the best thing that I can think of is guys who've been, oh, not guys, but people who've been through those, who've walked
yeah,
through those fires and walked through those doors, turn around and go back, and they're like, stop, don't go this way.
yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
best I can figure out right now.
Honestly, and that it's proving to be effective. Like, I every time I do a talk, it's followed up with emails, text messages, phone calls, and from other first responders who they might not have had the courage to say it in the talk, but they're calling afterwards saying, "Listen, I really connected with you. What you said is exactly what I'm going through. What do I do from here? Where do I go?" Or fire chiefs saying, "Hey, I think we need to look at this a little closer because what you said made a lot of sense, and it's going on in my department as well. So how can help me help my guys, sort of thing, right?" Um, so within the fire service, I find it really working well that way. But it's slow going. Like it needs some more momentum, and then outside of the fire service as well. Like, I mean, uh, there's enough people, in the public eye that are talking recovery now that I think is wonderful. But, I think more and more of that needs to happen as well, because, if people can kind of relate to somebody who they look up to and who may have lived, if you can look at somebody and say, wow, if he can do it, then, or she can do it, then I've got to be able to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are huge celebrities like Russell Brand who wrote that book Recovery, and
Yeah.
yeah, there are a lot of really really famous people who are, yeah, like you say, showing that it's possible, and I guess taking the stigma and the shame
Yeah.
away from struggles with addiction, which is hugely positive.
Absolutely.
So what led to you finally fucking kicking the habit?
Yeah, so the last probably 3 years of my drinking and using career, um, really bad stuff started happening to me. Like, I was getting caught doing things, getting thrown in jail. Believe it or not, by I got hit by a car 4 times, like 4 separate times, walking, hit by cars. Like somebody was telling me, "Hey, dude, like you need to smarten up." And so things were going on in my life um, that I stopped being able to live with who I'd become, to the point where I was taking mirrors down in my house, because I was ashamed to look at myself. So the only mirror I had in my house was a handheld mirror that I'd shave with, but I wouldn't look at my eyes. I couldn't, I despised myself. Like, I hated what I had become. And so 3 times over those 3 years, I attempted suicide, and obviously not successfully, but I was dying and crying for help. Like, but I don't know. I think I still hadn't had enough. I wasn't, like, as I said before, I wasn't ready for the party to completely end for me. And then one day I woke up. It was January 2nd, and like 2011, and I nothing particular in my life was like, there wasn't an event that caused me to think this, but I woke up and said to myself, I just cannot live this way any longer. And I had this plan that I was going to end my life, and I was going to do a good enough job of it this time, because I had attempted it several times before. So I sat in my garage and I was writing on a piece of paper, all sorts of different ways that I could do it. And, I had seen, like I had said at work, I'd seen these suicide calls and how the family reacts, and I'd been the person to find these people, and I didn't. I was trying to figure out what is the easiest way to do it that's not going to hurt people around me, and that I can kind of go peacefully and just be out of everyone's life, and done with my own. And something happened as I was writing this list out, and I got hit with, like, I always say it was like a wave of emotions just like floored me. And I remembered all those times that I had ducked into the rooms of recovery and said like, oh no, I'm not like these people. I haven't done this yet. That hasn't happened to me yet. And I started to realize like all those things were starting to happen to me. All those things, I was doing those things that I said that wasn't me. And it clicked. I'm like, I'm exactly like all those people in those rooms. I'm exactly, and if not worse than most of them. And I dropped the pen, you know, crumpled up that piece of paper, threw it out, and I said, like, I got to go find the first meeting I can get to. And I found, you know, I knew where to go. I'd been to the same meeting, you know, over 10 years. I was 32 when I finally got sober for the last time. And it was the same room I had walked into so many times. But I walked in with a different mindset, a different set of, you know, eyes, ears, a different heart mainly. And, you know, I was finally ready to sort of wave that white flag of surrender. And the second I walked into that room, my life changed. I broke down. Somebody went to shake my hand, and it was a, you know, a younger guy shook my hand, and I didn't let his hand go. I bawled my eyes out in front of him. I told him, you know, I needed him. I needed all those people in that room to show me how to live, because I can't live like this any longer. You know, I think I completely monopolized the time in that meeting. I made it all about me, but
Yeah.
like a good addict that I was, it was still all about me, right? So, but thankfully, everybody in that room gathered around me and said, "Dude, like, you know, we've been there. We were exactly like you. There's hope. Let us show you how to live." And you know, I was all for it. At that point, I said, I my life is in your hands. Show me, and I will do whatever it is that you say. Like, I'm ready. And
Yeah, that's I was going to ask you, like, you have to be ready as someone who has a problem with addiction,
absolutely,
because a lot of people get in touch and ask me, like, my cousin or my dad or my best friend or my boyfriend or my girlfriend, I'm worried about their drug use, I'm worried about their drinking. How do I get them help? How do I get them recovery?
yeah,
And I'm always left with, well, they have to really want to meet you at least halfway. They have to want to be part of the process. Is that true of your experience?
absolutely. I mean, I hadn't, you know, with all the with everybody, like I had mentioned before, that was trying to, you know, trying to get me to change, trying to facilitate recovery for me. Like, these were all well-meaning people that really truly wanted the best for me. You know, I just pushed them away. I wasn't ready, and you know, it's a tough line to walk as a friend or family member or partner of somebody who may need the help. You know, how do you show support but give them like sort of how do you show support without either enabling or like bashing the person, or you know, this sort of thing, right? Like, it's a tough line to walk. That's a harder thing to do than it is, I think, for the addict sometimes, because we can just say, no, I don't want you, you're going to go over here, but
Yeah,
they're stuck still loving you and watching you destroy yourself.
it's really hard. I try and encourage people to explore the idea of like compassionate detachment.
Yeah,
Like, you still care about the person, you let
yeah,
them know you care about them, but you can't actually be actively present in their life until they're ready to change. What do you think of that?
it's spot on. I mean, that's the way. So I still have people in my life that I truly hope that they find recovery. And you know, I do my best not to push anything on them. I try to live by example. You know, showing that, you know, a life of recovery can be fun. It can be exciting. It doesn't have to be stuffy and boring. Um, but I won't. You know, if I feel some pushback, or if I feel like they're creating some distance because of my recovery, I won't step any closer.
Mm.
I'm respectful of that, but sort of, I'm here when you need me. If you need me, you know, the lines are always open. So, you know, hit me up when you're ready. If not, like, you know, do your thing, but always remember that I'm here.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because anyone watching this,
Hmm.
I think that's an important thing to come to understand. Because when I was young, I'd be in a relationship with, lovers who had heavy drinking or alcohol and drug stuff going on.
Yeah,
And because I didn't know better, I was really aggressive about, you need to change, you need to do this.
yeah,
A lot of ultimatums, I was very judgmental, and that all stemmed from the fact that I'm so wounded by my father's alcoholism on a deep level, and I hadn't even begun to unpack that and heal with that. And I would project that onto my partner, and
yeah,
that was just super counterproductive. Like, it didn't make them change their behavior. It just drove a wedge between us and led to them hiding their behavior.
for sure.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, it can actually do more harm than good. Like, it's a well-intentioned thing. Like, I need you to stop drinking, or I'm worried about your drug use. But
yeah,
how you communicate that is essential, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very touchy, right? Like because us as alcoholics and addicts, like we are very sensitive people. We don't like to admit it, but we're ultra sensitive. And you say the wrong thing at the wrong time to us, and it's like we'll cut you off for life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Yeah, it's a very very tough thing. That's my biggest hurdle is to dealing with the friends and family members of still suffering addicts and alcoholics, is because there's oftentimes that you have to give them that sort of bad news that there's nothing you can do to push that on any more than you have. You need to step away, and yeah, it's very touchy.
Yeah. So now you've been living in recovery, like, what did you say, 8 years, 9 years?
9.5 now.
Nine and a
Yeah,
half. Congratulations. I'm so stoked for you. And
really
so you're of service, traveling around, like giving hope and education and information and living by example. And you've become a stepfather and you have a partner and stuff now. So you have,
yeah. Life is fantastic for me right now. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, so I travel a whole bunch. I'm engaged to like the most wonderful woman I've ever met. She's
Con-
like, and
Congratulations, by the way. I saw that on Instagram
oh,
that you
thank you,
got
man.
engaged. Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. I did it kind of on a whim in Thailand this like a couple months back, but best decision I've ever made. And like this, so she's also sober for about 8 years, coming up on 8 years. Um,
Is she sober because she's in recovery, or is she just sober because she just wants to be sober?
so she is in recovery. She's a recovering addict and alcoholic, but she went a completely different route than me. She kicked on her own, traveled like hitchhiked across Canada to come back home from the West Coast, and just said I've had enough. At 20 years old, she did that. And I couldn't have done that on my own. She was really strong. She still is very, very strong. So she kicked on her own. She got married. She had a beautiful boy, um, and stayed sober. She just, I think, decided I like this life a lot better. And when her and I met, it was really interesting because I'd gotten sober through 12-step kind of program, and she was completely opposite of that. She didn't know anything about like the rooms of recovery. So I learned a lot from her. She learned a lot from me. So she'll come to meetings here and there, and then we do some stuff on our own. And I always say this too: like recovery is not a one size fits all sort of thing, right? Like you don't have to go to AA. You don't have to go to psychologists or counseling or whatever it may be. There's a lot of different routes you can go. Um, for me, that was the only way because I couldn't do it on my own. But there's support out there that's outside of a 12-step program. I think is really important for people to know, um, because there's this misconception that the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous,
That's it.
um, that it's this like cult and you're going to become religious and you're going to be and it's simply not the case, right?
Yeah.
um, there's an old school mentality that sort of pushes that, but it's not the case. And I think young people really need to know that.
Yeah, word. Yeah, that's what I liked about the whole development of the whole straight edge culture.
Yeah,
It was like a preemptive approach. It was Do you know what I mean? Like it kind of made sobriety cool. Although, like you say, like it did actually, first, that hard line militant straight edge become, yeah,
Yeah,
religious, almost religious in its zealot like approach to, killing drug dealers and yada yada yada.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there
but
definitely there's an extreme to it.
yeah, that's the
Uh,
extreme end of it. But the Toby Morse PMA
yeah,
all day approach to sobriety and straight edge is something
yeah,
that I always gravitated towards, and became a real protective factor for me as a
yeah,
teenager who was around a lot of people who used drugs, had an
yeah,
alcoholic father who was in active addiction, and then
yeah,
here was some cooler older guys in my city with tattoos and good style and shit who were
yeah,
like, nah, man, drinking's lame, drugs are lame.
yeah. It's really funny because like I was always around straight edge people, and I liked what they were doing, and I liked their vibe, but I
Yeah, me too.
couldn't hang with them, right? Like
Yeah.
I was a mess, and you know, a lot of my friends now, like, in recovery, also like straight edge people that, you know, everybody kind of like intermingles, and it's cool now, but, you know, before it was very like, it was, like you said, hard line. Like if you weren't part of that, like, don't come near us sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is not cool, man. Like you actually
It's
want to bring people in. Yeah. Is hardcore still like part of your life, the hardcore music scene?
it is. I mean, I've definitely like, I like broadened my sort of like, like listening pleasures, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's still like, I still go to hardcore shows all the time. Like a lot of my friends are in hardcore bands and still playing, and that sort of thing. So it's definitely like my kind of first love, right? Punk
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hardcore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Me too.
And
Yeah. I vibe to some, I listen to a heap of hip hop and
yeah.
um heaps of really fruity weird shit these days as well. I'm really into that whole lo-fi sort of emo hip
Oh yeah.
hop. Yeah, yeah. Which is interesting because so much of that music is full of really negative messaging, but I still relate to it on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Like I'm like I could have been you, or I was you, or I really, even at,
Yeah.
middle age now, I'm still like I feel for this kid. I just want to give him a hug and take him for a run.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, man.
um, Hey, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you sharing your story so openly and honestly with us, and well, myself and anyone watching this. And I just like on a human level, I'm so happy for you. I'm
Thank you.
so happy that you found recovery and that you've become a stepfather and you have this beautiful partner you're engaged to, and you're turning all your negatives into positives for other people. And I just really, really admire that, and I relate to that. And I don't know. I'm just grateful to know that you're over there in Canada doing your thing, making the world a better place one day at a time.
Absolutely, absolutely, and likewise for you. I love everything that you're putting out. Like over the Instagram posts and your stories and that sort of thing. It's like, I really pay attention to your stuff, and I love it. It makes a big difference in my life and my day.
Yeah,
Every day you
yeah,
got
bromance, bro. It's a big
yeah,
hugging.
man. Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Listen, like,
before we finish, is there anything you wanna, sign off on?
yeah, I mean, I guess if anybody's listening out there that's still struggling, and may need somebody to talk to, somebody that they could that could relate to them, somebody that's feeling alone out there, like, hit me up, like, I don't know, like, link my Instagram, DM me, like, I'm open to any and every question, recovery related. And if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer, or at least point you in the right direction, no matter where in the world you are.
You're awesome. Okay, this has been a real, real pleasure. Keep in
Like,
touch. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, we'll talk again soon, my friend. I'm just gonna peace you out.
All right. Peace.